So at that stage, it was not sustainable, but we are engaging with the IPID to get clarity on aspects.
But you never engaged with IPID. You said so yourself that the letter never went out and you never followed up to ensure that it goes out.
Yes.
So in fact, you blocked the process because you didn't engage with IPID. You told city manager that you are engaging with IPID. That's how the process will go forward. And then you never engaged with IPID, which means you stopped any chance of Mkhwanazi being disciplined.
Chair, I never engaged with IPID because we were in the process of taking the letters to IPID to clarify what are we going to address. So I never engaged with IPID. I never blocked any process.
Advocate Behari, we are now looking backwards. We're not looking forward. We are 2 years later. We're looking back. You did not engage with IPID, which means it is you. You said to the city manager, the process will be, I will engage with IPID. But you did not do that. So the process stopped because you did not do what you told the city manager you were going to do.
Chair, what I said to the city manager was, in terms of the content of our letter, which was speaking on fraud and corruption, it was not talking about stopping the disciplinary process, which was addressed to Chief Mapiyeye. The issues that I raised with city manager on the fraud of corruption was we were in the process of dealing with the issues, and I said to her, this is what the content of our letter is.
I repeat myself, how can they charge Mkhwanazi when you have said to them the charges are not sustainable?
Chair, the issues we raised in terms of that, if they want to charge them in terms of what IPID says, it was a directive from IPID to that. Of course, later on we said it's a recommendation and we had our discussion on that. But I said to the city manager that we are engaging to clarify these issues. This is why it is vague at this stage. It's not about stopping any issues of proceeding to charge Mkhwanazi.
Thank you. I'm going to leave it there.
If you, head of legal, say to the city manager, there is no merit, these allegations, because the charge, the formulation of the charge is based on facts. There are certain facts. In your long letter, you have given a response. You say to IPID, this letter that never goes out, you say to IPID, Mkhwanazi did nothing wrong. That's really what you've done. You say Mzolo gave him tasks to do, right? And then Mkhwanazi is telling you that when he when he put forward the MOU and he put the donation letter forward, it was all on, accepted the donation, it was all in execution of his tasks. That's one. Yeah. Two, you say he didn't register vehicles. Stain registered to those vehicles. So Mkhwanazi has nothing to do with that. It's always been the practice to receive donations. Stain explains that. So Mkhwanazi did nothing wrong. So Mkhwanazi sent the MOU to the chief of police, and the chief of police, the fault of the chief of police that it was not completed and signed. So in that long letter, you basically say Mkhwanazi did nothing wrong. You answer to the facts. He did nothing wrong. Now, how would you, and that's what you tell the city manager. That response is given to the city manager. That's what you tell her. How could she, and Chief Mapiyeye, when he becomes aware of this, but forget him for the purpose of what I'm putting to you, how could the city manager then take disciplinary steps against Mkhwanazi if you, head of legal, have given responses why what IPID is saying is unsustainable? Because remember, IPID is saying he's guilty, he's committed to this conduct. You say he didn't. Look at the authorization that he had when he was acting. Look at Stain, what Stain says. Look at the practice. Look at what the chief of police failed to do. That's an answer from you. On what basis would the city manager then proceed to charge him?
Chair, the issues of which I've raised in the letter was not about IPID or to finding that Julius Mkhwanazi did not do anything. It was about consideration of, in the IPID report, consideration of the affidavit of Julius Mkhwanazi, where he said he was given this authority. If you had gone there and then done an extended investigation and found that there was no such authority, it was concretized our case, Chair. So it's not about saying that we're finding that Julius Mkhwanazi did not do anything. He raised in his affidavit to say, I was given these positions, I was dealing with this MOUs, I was dealing with these issues. And the issue through IPID was then, but have you considered the substance of what Mkhwanazi was doing?
You don't just say, have you considered? You actually say he did nothing wrong. And I'll read you a paragraph randomly. In that letter, at paragraph 6, you say, at the time of the vehicle registration, the benefit of in brackets, you say getting more vehicles would have accrued to the city had the deal been approved. The cost incurred in the registration was a step forward, was a step towards obtaining the benefit on behalf of the city. It will be challenging to argue that the registration costs constitute prejudice to the city. The registration costs should not be viewed in isolation, but as part of the entire process of acquiring the benefit on behalf of the city. So your theme throughout is no, but this was to the benefit of the city. You say that, no. And it doesn't matter whether it's criminal or disciplinary process. You, head of legal, are saying this whole transaction was for the benefit of the city. He did nothing wrong.
Chair.
And you tell that to the city manager. How can the city manager charge him for that? For registering these vehicles, for incurring the cost of registering these vehicles?
Chair, as if the donation had completed legally, the intention was very clear to have benefited the city. That is what we were speaking to. It wasn't about him.
It wasn't to benefit the city. The vehicles were never going to be transferred to the city. We've looked at the MOU. Don't reprise what that MOU says. We've looked at it. We've looked at all those documents. We've had Brigadier Mkhwanazi here. Those vehicles were never intended to come to the city. They remained with Mr. Matlala's company because that was the intention. They were never intended. So they were going to be driven, and it happened that way. They continued to be used by Mr. Matlala's people, not your city. So there's no benefit that came out of it to the city. The MOU contains nothing that says these will come to the city. You say there's nothing wrong with all of that. And you say that to the city manager. So what I'm putting to you is when the city manager says, I was advised by head of legal that there's no merit or the complaints are unsustainable, and so I could not discipline. Forget her motives, and I couldn't discipline. There's nothing wrong in her saying that because her head of legal has expressed the views that he has expressed in this letter.
Yes.
Yes.
So I have expressed that view, Chair, and I said to, and the document details why. Now, in respect of, you say it was never intended to, at the stage when we considered that report, there was no linkage to say that it was never intended for. The only issue we picked up even from the initiation was it was a donation to the city. A donation then will speak to a document or vehicles or whatever the donation item would be, being transferred to and being used by the city. So if there was an intention never to transfer the vehicles or never to bring it back to allow to be used by elsewhere, I don't see that anywhere in that chair. Specifically mentioned. But if it is a donation, understanding that part from a donation, that would have covered that the city would be the ones benefiting.
You see, we're having this discussion with you. We've had the benefit of the evidence of Brigadier Mkhwanazi even, and the documents that are involved in this. And from that evidence, we know that it was never the intention to deliver the vehicles to the city. We know that. They were always going to remain with Mr. Matlala.
Okay.
That is the evidence,
yes.
right? You say that was to the benefit of the city, because that's what you're saying. In fact, you say, on the contrary, again, I pick another random paragraph. You say it is difficult to see how CAT benefited from the registration of the vehicles as they transferred ownership of their vehicles to the city. Well, he benefited because he was driving around in unmarked vehicles that when they are checked on the system, the city, there's no basis for you to say that. He always had control of these vehicles. The the city is the one that stood to benefit, particularly considering that EMPD had a shortage of vehicles and there seemed to be no effort from the chief of police and senior management to address this. The purpose of the vehicle registration was to increase the number of vehicles to be used by the EMPD. There's no facts for you to say that. There was no facts whatsoever, not from the documents, not from anything that Brigadier Mkhwanazi said, because in that warning statement that you pulled out, the warning statement, it does say that they returned, they were never delivered to the city.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know what facts you were relying on when you say they would have increased the vehicles to be used by the EMPD, because
Sure.
they never came to the EMPD.
In that,
But don't lose sight of what this part of the discussion is.
Yeah.
This part of the discussion that Commissioner Khumalo started with you is that you advised the city manager, you spoke to the city manager. She saw this long letter, but you also had a discussion with her. So when she says, my head of legal says that the complaints or the allegations against Brigadier Mkhwanazi are not sustainable, she's right. That's what you've said.
Chair,
She's right. You said that to her.
Chair, on two aspects, I just want. The first one is, at the time we considered the document, Mkhwanazi's evidence, of course, was not there. We considered the document purely looking at the IPID report, and we crafted our response in that regard. So yes,
But you also had his statement, warning statement, because if you didn't have the warning statement, then it raises another question. When you say to IPID you didn't consider Mkhwanazi's statement, what would you have been referring to, right? So you must have had sight. Otherwise, you're commenting on incomplete information.
we did have sight, and hence that is the document we refer to here. When Commissioner Khumalo mentioned the other document from, I think, this is why we had the insight. We asked him, did you consider the impact of that? Because in the documents what was contained there, it's referred to functions continuing to deal with the issue of functions given to him by Mzolo, which included the drafting of the MOUs, and for looking at then the donations issued. So that in that statement of his linked to the IPID report, it spoke about donations. So when you say it was not transferred, the vehicle was transferred into the name of City of
They were
Ekurhuleni.
never given to the city. They were never